start at 5 o'clock in the evening. That would be my personal opinion.
I could work with that.
Yeah, chime in if you guys feel otherwise, because I'm writing these notes down so we can make these
I could work
changes.
with that too. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. So then on,
I would like to see, even if it's before the 4th of July. I could see people wanting to celebrate it on a maybe someone who work on the 5th. 4th off, they may have to work on the 5th, so if they're gonna
okay. Yeah, I jumped to this slide because this is the upcoming calendar for both the winter 2017 and the summer of 2018. And I think this fits easier. It's easier to have this discussion on the weekends with this slide up. And
well, and I'm a visual person.
yeah, so as you can see that in the month, the grayed out days are the days that are within allowed usage within the state law, and the yellow days are the days that I was just showing as far as the days that we're proposing to be allowed to use in Fort Dodge. So you can see with December 31st is a Sunday, with the 1st being a Monday. So under that policy, they'd only allow to be used on December 31st. But if you're just talking more
referring mostly
of
to
the
summertime.
summertime,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, we could make it.
In my
yeah.
example, you would be allowed on the 29th and 30th. Because what I really heard from those that complained was during the week when I have to go to work the next day.
Yeah,
So, yeah, there are people that work weekends. So for my example, I would be okay with the 29th and 30th. And maybe not the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, but I would be okay with the 6th and 7th. So my original statement was the weekend before the 4th, weekend after the 4th, and the 4th itself.
yeah.
If the 4th fell on a weekend, then maybe you wouldn't need to do the weekend after, but then that can get really jumbly in trying to write an ordinance.
Sometimes the city does them on the 3rd. Like the
Yeah.
city doesn't necessarily allow you to blow their fireworks off on the 4th.
Right.
No, yeah, we've been the
So
3rd, we've been
you
the
do
5th.
that, and then
David, was this based on the consensus of the council and all the meetings we had?
Well, yeah, you know what we did? We had individual meetings to kind of see what feedback you were getting from the public and where you thought would be reasonable. So that we centered around that to get to where we thought
Because I know
most
in
of the
my
council
meeting,
members
the
fell
other
in.
councilman that was in there with me, we had both said we wouldn't mind having 2 weeks prior to the 4th, but we were willing to compromise with the rest of the council. I don't see a lot of compromise with this schedule, I guess. Kind of going along with what Jeff was saying as far as the weekend before the 4th. Personally, I think a good compromise would be the weekend before the 4th through the weekend after the 4th. That gives people that work odd shifts. I think of people out at CJ that work like a 2-2-3 schedule. It allows for them to set up their picnics, their parties with their family and friends. And it just gives a lot of varying times that they could do that type of stuff. And that'd be a nice, easy way, like Jeff was saying, it might get jumbled if you start saying this day, but not this day. Whereas if you have the Friday night before the 4th till the Saturday after the 4th, it's one solid chunk, kind of like we do with our yard waste burning.
So in your example, if the 4th landed on a Friday, then you would still have obviously the 4th, Friday the 4th, but also Saturday the 5th.
Yes,
But what if it fell on a Saturday, then would you still get the
that'd be the
following?
end of it.
Okay,
I'm viewing the week as a Sunday through Saturday.
okay. I could get behind that.
So how many days are you talking about now?
So that would essentially
It would just
be
depend on
a
each
week to
calendar
10
year.
days would be the most it would
It'd be a
probably
week to 10 days, yeah.
About 9 days?
The weekend before the 4th, the weekend after the
That's
4th.
9 days.
I don't think it could ever be 10 days,
That's 9 days. Weekend.
most it could ever be.
Probably
I like to see July 1st through the 4th, just because it's a well-defined date. We can do that year in and year out. And like I've always said, if they want to do something different, they don't have to go that far outside of town to shoot off their fireworks. I just think the complaints are overwhelming, and I don't want to deal with that again. So I like the 1st through the 4th.
I agree with that, and I wouldn't mind seeing a total ban over the New Year's holiday.
You wouldn't mind seeing a total ban on the
Total
New
ban
Year's?
on them through the New Year's holiday.
Yeah.
And just have the one time a year. I think it'd be easier on our police force to enforce. They've only got one time to look at it and deal with it. So I see Des Moines and West Des Moines both only had a few hours on the 4th, and they ended up putting a total ban on everything.
What I heard from people is they were saying they didn't mind the fireworks like years before because they'd shoot them off maybe 2 or 3 days before the 4th of July, maybe a day after, and that was it. But when you go for 5 weeks, 5, 7 weeks, they said that's way, way too much. So to me, the way they acted this last time, I'd be more in favor of what we have it right now, 1 to 4, the 1st to the 4th. And see how that works myself. Because people are telling me they're getting tired of it. They just get tired of fireworks going off all the time. Which I understand that. I understand exactly what they're talking about. So I think 4 days basically, I think would be enough.
Well, if you agree with the three of them, we have a pretty well-defined time period.
Prior to this summer, I made the comment, rough paraphrasing, that it was the first year and I wasn't going to be in favor of changing anything unless something drastic happened. Well, it's fair to say something drastic happened. I'm in a pretty rough mindset along with Andy and Jeff. I think 4 days is too short. December 31st, I don't think it should be all day. I think it should be maybe 5 till midnight or 12:30. But that's it in the winter. If we are to shorten it up in the summer, I pitched out 2 weeks, but if we do some sort of compromise of a week before or incorporate Jeff's weekends, I think we still need to give the benefit of the doubt to some extent. But that being said, I think restrictions are absolutely justified following this year.
My last one? Or are you
That-
done, Nevin?
Did that muddy the waters enough for you?
Well, a lot of it depends on what Dave says. If Dave says 1st to the 4th, the four of you want that way. So
What do you say, Dave?
Well, I think back to the original recommendation by staff was to not allow fireworks at all. Remember that?
yeah.
And I was not in favor of that. I thought we should at least give it some consideration. And I was quite honestly surprised at the amount of fireworks that were shot off after hours, after the allowable dates. And this is the one issue. I've been on the council almost 10 years, and I can speak for the balance of the council. I think we probably got as many emails on this issue as any issue that we've ever had to deal with.
Or all issues
Combined by doubled, yeah. And so there, with the majority of the emails opposing the allowable time, and there, quite honestly, there were some emails that were in favor of the fireworks, but asking that we not disallow them and that we work with it. And actually, some of those emails and I think we all got them today, were complimentary of what was being proposed. I still haven't answered my question, but I guess I'm in favor of the 1st through the 4th, and I'd probably lean more towards that and disallowing them. We'll see how it goes. We're still going to have an abuse, even if we did ban them. We're still going to have abuse, just like we had before. But I'm hoping that this would tighten up the window. I know you'll probably get into the rest of the presentation later, but I favor the penalty. I favor the the tenants and the property owners being penalized as well. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
So 4 of you are in favor of the 1st through the 4th, so I'm assuming that's what I'm going to propose for Monday. Okay, and the 31st, all I heard was Dean saying no to the 31st. Again, we're kind of the same route as where I was when we were, I figured most of you would be acceptable for that, but
The only thing is, more power to the brave that want to be out firing fireworks on December 31st. I'm hoping it's a really cold day.
In all honesty, the police are not going to be responding to those calls. They're going to be out looking for drunk drivers, and I mean, that's going to be the low priority on the totem pole that night. So even if we ban it, they're still going to do it.
31st, later start time on the 31st.
Okay.
And about midnight, 12:30.
I think I'm the only one that spoke on behalf of Christmas Eve, Christmas, just being that some cultures use fireworks to celebrate that holiday. But I realize I'm probably the only one that acknowledges that.
On to something else we're looking at, and this is where we're varying from the state law also and banning fireworks over 20 grams of I guess gunpowder is what you call it. So the ones in the red box, the mine and shell devices, if I recall sitting here that a lot of the complaints were for these bigger ones that are launched and have louder explosions. So what we proposed is that we would say these are not allowed to be shot off in the city of Fort Dodge, and then we would have that posted inside the places that are sold in Fort Dodge that these can be purchased, but you can't launch these in Fort Dodge. So it just
On these, I just want to clarify that 20 grams of composition, according to the APA, those shells are actually 60-gram compositions, and it's 20 gram of lift material. So we have to make sure that we clarify that correctly, because 20 grams might be a little bit smaller than what those shells are. But one of those artillery shells, like the 1 3/4, they're actually a 60-gram shell with 20 grams of lift. So.
Yeah, if I recall, and I'm going a little bit out of with lack of memory because we worked on this a while back, is the 20 grams was, I think, that limit for more of like the bottle rockets, firecrackers, things like that. These are like 60-gram explosives, but your typical, I don't know what you'd call them. Well, they're consumer fireworks, but the smaller ones are no bigger than 20 grams. And then the next thing we worked on is this civil liability on owners and legal tenants.
Do you want feedback in regards to the last slide?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that if we're only going to allow them for 4 days, we might as well allow the big ones that are really what people want.
Oh, my goodness.
I
understand that they are what derive the majority of the complaints, if not all. But at the same time, that's really what people want.
There's no
That's
purpose.
the stuff they couldn't have for a long time. That's the stuff they really want.
There's no purpose for those things except for to be disruptive. So to me, outlawing them would be perfectly fine. Because again, it's not the people that obey the laws we're having trouble with. It's the people at 3 o'clock in the morning down in certain areas of town that are blasting those things off. And those are the ones that create the problems.
But that's not a problem of the firework itself. That's a problem of the person firing it. That's a
I
problem
think the
of
whole problem with
enforcement.
this whole statute is with the people that are firing it. It's not necessarily what we put out there.
And for the people like me that like the fireworks, those do produce a nice show. It's not meant to be disruptive. It's meant to put on a show for family members. And for something that's legally for sale in the city of Fort Dodge, and they are going to be bought for those 4 days, I would have to agree with Jeff that the people that use them right are going to use them right. The people that don't use them right are the ones that we need to look at enforcement on, but to just outright ban that, those are the showy, the big flowers, the colors, whatever you want to say. The rest of that is you know, just a spark and a bang, so to speak, boom, done. Those mines and shell devices, those are small versions of what you see when you go to a professional show. It's the consumer level of those. And to ban those, it just sounds ridiculous to me.
Well, the most of mine
I
I've
might
heard-
pipe in here too, as somebody who has to prosecute this. Once they're blown up, I'm not real sure how I prove what composition they had prior to. No, I'm serious. I mean, because when fireworks go off, you find cardboard and things, and that's it. So I don't.
Yeah, the evidence is blown up.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know how I could prosecute those because it's not illegal to possession because you can buy them. So that's a consideration you might have too.
But on the other hand, that's what people are complaining about most, is those. They do not like those. I don't like them either. My goodness, I hear them shooting them off over by Terry's house, and I live way north. And then I have people call me up and tell me that somebody shoots it off, and their windows are shaking, and he said they wake them out of bed, and my goodness, anyway, it's just stupid what they've been doing this last time. They had no consideration. I had one person write me an email. Maybe they did with everyone else, but they said that they were shooting them off at the school parking lot, and they went over and said, can you please not do this anymore? And they laughed. They said, we're going to keep on doing it because if the cops come, that we won't be here anyway by the time they get here. They don't care. They don't care about people. They don't care about how other people feel. They're just going to do it. That's why, almost like Dave, I'd like to ban them, because that's just their attitude, and they're not considerate to other people. I was shocked how inconsiderate these people are. They really are inconsiderate. Woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, went outside, they're still shooting off those blasters, whatever you want to call them, at 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning.
I understand that.
It's just stupid.
So is banning them going to make them more intelligent? Because I don't think it will.
Jeff, I'm telling you how the people feel.
Dude, I'm with you. I heard it too. What I'm saying though is if they're going to shoot them off at 3 a.m. when it's illegal to shoot them off at 3 a.m., they're going to shoot them off at 3 a.m. if it's illegal to shoot them off at all.
Well, I know, I agree with that.
Because
They
we
will
can't,
anyway.
because we're not allowed to control the sale of them. So if they're allowed to purchase them, I believe they're going to use them. I think if we can restrict the amount of time but still allow them to use them, then maybe they'll at least fall within that time frame more. But there's nothing to say that they'll do that either.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You know, most of the mines and shells that I've been outside when they went off, there's nothing pretty about them. It's just a sonic boom. And all they are is disruptive.
Some are made to, I believe, just make sound, and I believe some are made to make sound and light.
I think no matter what we do, it's going to come down to enforcement. I think if we start getting a good enforcement and start handing out some of these fines, the people are going to get word, and I think that's going to be a great deterrent.
At what point does a consumer fireworks cross over into a display firework? Is there a specific weight value?
Yeah, well, I don't know what they are, but yeah, there's a distinct difference between consumer and display fireworks.
What I think is that most of the stuff that we're hearing about is things that are being brought in from out of state. I don't think it's the ones that are being sold in state that we have a problem with. I think most of them are coming in from Missouri
Why do you think that?
because they're much louder than what a consumer firework should be.
Because I can tell you the ones that were legal that were going off across the street from my house were enough to make me jump out of my bed like a scaredy cat. And there doesn't appear to be much difference, like in how they sound and how they look. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Terry, just for your information, the 20-gram lift charge I was talking about earlier, display fireworks contain more than 40 grams of chemical composition, exclusive of the lift charge, up to 130 milligrams of chemical composition. So they're over twice the size of a consumer.
Could I intervene here a minute? Could we maybe, we're spending a lot of time on this, I'd like to have, I'm sure there's some people here that, from the public, that want to share their comments. How long is the Kosovo workshop?
It's a half hour.
It will be half an hour. So we got 5 minutes. Do you want to maybe finish your presentation, Dave, and then,
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to go afterwards, council.
oh, go afterwards? Okay, for the fireworks?
Yeah, I think we should probably go. Oh, I mean, the Kosovo, the kids are here, and I don't.
Yeah,
wanna
okay,
them
that
go
makes sense.
afterwards,
All right, continue then.
So, I mean, do you want me to present for another couple minutes, and then we'll,
Yeah. Is that fair with everybody? Is that fair with people?
or do you want to just start Kosovo and get back to this? I mean, I don't feel like, I
should
only
we
have a couple slides.
Is there anybody from the public that actually wants to speak? If you do, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. We have 3, 4 possibly.
Let them speak now.
Let's go Kosovo and then allow some time right before the council meeting for those people that want to speak briefly. How's that sound?
I don't know if there's well, if there's time left. I don't know how long.
So what do you
Kosovo-
suggest?
Just come back to this after the meeting.
Come after the meeting.
Come
Okay.
back, come back after the
All
meeting and do it.
I don't think it'll be a long meeting.
Yeah, okay. Let's proceed.
Okay, what, with a couple more minutes of this?
This and then go to Kosovo. Start Kosovo at 5:30.
Okay. So, again, as I was mentioning with this, what this section changes is it makes the either property owner or the legal tenant has the strict responsibility for the activities going on the property. So it won't, and this is what we're doing to bolster the enforcement side of it, to say that it's not just what the police officer sees. Obviously, if there are fireworks being discharged illegally from a property, that the property owner is responsible if someone else isn't going to take the responsibility for it, or
So,
the legal tenant.
You say, David, that if somebody's renting a house and they get caught with the fireworks, that the fine would go to the
Goes to the legal tenant, yeah.
legal tenant, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's important
not
to
the landlord.
differentiate in the record is when I originally presented some language changes, it dealt with the property owner, and the inclusion of the legal tenant in here is specifically as directive that if it occurs at a rental house, that it is to go to the tenant and not the property
Yeah.
owner. I know there's probably some landlords out there that were a little bit queasy with this, so
Yeah.
just to clarify for the record.
And so the other part is, again, if I'm a property owner and for some reason I'm not there, let's say I'm out on the weekend, I'm gone up to the lakes, for example, and then somebody's over in my yard shooting them off, then I'm responsible because I'm not home? How's that work?
Did you give them permission to
No.
launch them, and then they're
But
already in
they're shoot-
violation of state law?
Yeah, but if they're shooting them off in my yard, then am I going to be held legally responsible for that when I'm gone?
No, because they would be in violation of state law because you did not permit them to do it on your
Yeah,
property.
they're trespassing.
So when they come, so basically, if I get a ticket, a summons in the mail, say I have to go to court, I can go there and say, hey, I wasn't home and I can prove it, then I'm not responsible, correct?
No, that doesn't say that. It says I wasn't home and I didn't know these people were on my property.
Then that'd be okay.
It's up to the judge. Because it's no different than the speed camera. I mean, you can say, I didn't know they were speeding in my car, but, and it's no different than the curfew. I didn't know my child was out. Well, lack of knowledge is not a defense
Well,
to the curfew violation.
Yeah,
I didn't know they were doing that in my car while I was driving.
Real quick and
I-
about
I
the
didn't know my
I can
kid was out.
understand that. I
Past
can
me.
understand those, but if I'm not home, let's say I'm gone for a week and they're shooting them off in my yard, how
We have
can
a
I be
couple
responsible for
magistrate- We
that?
have a couple magistrates that probably would find you not guilty, and I have a magistrate who would probably say if it's not lack of knowledge is not a defense, then keep a better eye on your property. It depends on the magistrate.
So my
See, I
my
can't go
intent-
along with that.
My intent with the language is that the police officers would be able to show up to a home with multiple people there, come up, see a discharged shell or whatever it might be. They can go up and they can say, who shot it off? Everybody's going to say it wasn't me. And then they can identify, okay, here's our legal tenant, here's our property owner, here's your ticket if you're there. And then that property owner or legal tenant has the option of taking the ticket or going, I'm not paying $500, it was him. That's the intent. There's no way to make enforcement perfect on this ordinance.
And I'm-
This is a tool to hopefully give teeth to Roger and the officers that are going to be out there. This is the best I could come up with anyway.
And I don't believe that, I don't know, I can't speak for them, but it would be my thought that a local police officer is probably not going to write a ticket and just tape it to the door. They probably are going to want to write a ticket to an actual physical person that they can speak with. So if they show up, everyone scatters from your yard and they go up and knock on the door and no one answers, that's it. They leave, they drive back.
But that's why I'm bringing it up, because I want to make sure this doesn't happen to somebody if they're gone. All of a
And I
sudden-
think that it would be extremely unlikely that it would happen that they would receive a ticket, but at the same time, we got to have something to make this enforceable. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if we limit to 4 days or 48 days. If we don't have something to enforce the rule, then it really doesn't matter what rule we make.
Okay, let's pause this portion of our workshop and let's move on to Kosovo, and we'll reconvene this portion of the workshop until after the council meeting. All right, Dawn.
Okay.
specialist with the city of Fort Dodge, and one of the fortunate employees that has had the opportunity to lead our sister city initiative with Kosovo. As you know, an agreement was signed with our sister city, an agreement was signed for the sister city partnership with Jakova, Kosovo. And through this newly established partnership with 4-H, as well as Fort Dodge Community Schools, and the city of Fort Dodge organized our first initiative, an outgoing youth exchange. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, but I don't have the slides up.
Oh.
What's your projector setup?
I am not sure.
All right, Dawn, cue the music.
There we go. Or at least it started.
Oh, we're getting something. No.
Oh, you gotta run the PowerPoint presentation.
Correct, they were gonna run it.
How do you get it to presentation mode?
Where's that?
Oh, that probably works, right? Why isn't it going up there? I know.
How many people does it take to get the presentation going?
We're gonna do it a little different way.
Yeah.
Great. You guys don't have
Plug
sound.
it back in, it should work.
We have a video.
Oh,
It just has music, yeah. It's fine.
okay. Okay,
No, well, actually.
sounds great.
Yeah, that's
The microphone.
fine. Okay, go ahead and start, Don, you got it.
Okay. Okay, as I was saying, through a newly established partnership with 4-H and Fort Dodge Community Schools, the city of Fort Dodge organized our first initiative with our sister city, which was an outgoing youth exchange with Kosovo. 4 Fort Dodge Community School students were chosen and partnered with 4 students from our sister city, Jakova. 4 Johnston students were also chosen and partnered with 4 students from their sister city, which is Peja. 4-H provided significant funding to make this youth exchange happen, as well as several other community partners. And the students will kind of go into detail on those partners that made this all possible. But 4-H also provided an outstanding curriculum to prepare our students for their international experience, not only to be outstanding Iowa ambassadors while they are in Kosovo, but also to continue to be an ambassador when they return back to Iowa. The students truly earned their way for this opportunity. and to participate in this youth exchange. They worked very, very hard by designing and selling T-shirts, as well as participating in a week-long roundup at Hy-Vee to raise funds for their trip. So it is my pleasure to introduce our 4 Fort Dodge Community School students that were chosen, as well as their counselor from Fort Dodge Community Schools that chaperoned. And I'll let them introduce.
Hello, I'm Jordan Kloss, and I am now a freshman in college, and I was a senior when I went on this trip.
Hello, I'm Jeannie Boro. I'm a junior in high school, and I was a sophomore when I went on this trip.
Hi, I'm Michaela Pingle. I was a junior when I went on this trip, and I am now a senior.
Hi, my name is Kristen Rapp. I was a senior going on this trip, and I am currently a freshman in college.
And I'm Jolene Hayes, and I get to be their school counselor and their chaperone.
What grade are you in?
I just graduated.
Awesome.
So first off, I just want to say thank you to everybody who helped us get to Kosovo and back safely. We are here alive. In 1998 to 1999, Kosovo went through a civil war, and they declared independence in 2008. Our Iowa National Guard helped to make Kosovo a safer place, and they helped reestablish them as a country. And since what Don just said, the city of Fort Dodge has a sister city in Kosovo called Jakova, and our state of Iowa is also a sister state with Kosovo. And here's a little video kind of recapping our whole trip.
Nice. There it goes.
Is it good? Yeah. Oh my God.
So our purpose of going on this trip was to form a sister bond with our sister city, Jakova. We actually got a tour from some of the students from Jakova the last few days we were there. Jakova was actually the second most affected by the Civil War. And we actually ended up doing community service in Jakova when we were in the camp. We planted flowers, we painted the mural you saw in the video, and we picked up a lot of trash. We met the mayor and had a small meeting, and right after we met the mayor, he actually invited us to a conference, kind of like this one that we're at now, except everybody was speaking Albanian. And they actually had about 10 minutes in between the conference. They spoke in English and actually asked all 4 of us to speak about where we're from and kind of why we were there. And then the first thing we did was go to Camp Toka, and we were there for about 8 days. We met people from Macedonia, Romania, Canada, Finland, and a lot of other places. The camp cabins were kind of wooden. They were a lot nicer than what we expected. There was about 4 people to a cabin, and you were assigned to random people, so you didn't really know anybody. In the camp, we learned how to work together, and we were actually separated into multiple groups where we got to plan some fun nights for each other. I know a few of the nights were scavenger hunts that the kids actually created for everybody to do. There was this hard tarp game. We used the trash bag, but you set it on the ground and everybody had to stand on top of it, and then you had to find a way to flip it over with nobody stepping off of it.
The first day of camp, the main purpose was to create new relationships from people from Macedonia, Italy, Kosovo, of course, Romania, Finland, and Poland. So the main focus was to just get to know them, the people that we were going to be spending the week with, and create new relationships with them. Towards the end of the day, we also worked with campers, and we got in groups and decided a song to be sung in our Vesper Circle. A Vesper Circle we got into in the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and we said good morning in everyone's language or good night in everyone's language, and that was really, really cool and interesting, I thought. But we worked to get through a song, and it talked about success, or respect, the key to have success. And that song will always be stuck with me because that's just very, very important. You have to have respect. But that mainly just consisted of day 1. No? It's pausing. Go ahead. All right, the second day, we got group activities that we could choose, whether this being unusual sports, nature art, video production. Unusual sports consisted of people that were interested in learning about kickball, dodgeball, anything concerning a ball, basically. Everyone was very, very shocked when it came to dodgeball, even though we play it every day in PE. People from Kosovo don't play that, and so they were very interested in learning about that. Nature art consisted, this is a group that I was in. I personally enjoyed this. Nature art, we went out and took nature from its environment and we created it into our own nature, and then we also took nature in its own habitat and like drew on rocks and such. That was a very interesting time. Video production consisted of people that were interested in videotaping or learning more about the video production, and so they went around and videoed people in unusual sports, nature art, and just combined a video and then showed it to us at the end of what they have created. We also were put into other groups and designed and presented a Giving Back to the World mural to be painted in Jakova. We were given a sheet of paper and we were told to draw what we thought giving back to the world meant to us. Of course, my group did not get picked for the painting, but Jordan's did because she's an artist, which you'll see as well in more depth a little bit later. The third day, we also got back into our choice activity groups, went into more depth about that, learned more about our activities that we have chosen. This was also a big day because we visited the city of Pristina, which we learned about the newborn monument, which stands in Pristina, and it stands for the Kosovo gaining independence in February of 2008 from Serbia. So we got a picture with that. It's very cool to see in person. We also went on a traditional Albanian house tour, which consisted of learning about how the Albanians lived and just their lifestyle and what they went through. They had a family room up top that they worshipped in, and we also ate a traditional meal of pita and flia. A funny story with this, flia shown in the picture, it kind of looks like a pizza. I first tried to eat it like a pizza, and I decided you're not supposed to eat it like that. You're supposed to pick it off layer by layer, and it's supposed to cook for 8 hours in like oil. So it's not the best meal, but it was definitely interesting to try. Day 4 was more of a relaxing and setback day. We just obviously played more games, getting to know each other more. There was always something to learn every day at the camp. You just couldn't get enough of it. So that was day 4 that took place. We also were told that we were going to go to Jakova, paint the mural, and go to the mountains, which was yet to be exciting. And we were also served watermelon, which was very home-like and very fun and tasteful. Day 5 consisted of our service learning activities, so we went out to the community to help Jakova. We picked up trash, and this doesn't sound very fun, but we were given a scavenger hunt, and at the end we were given a lollipop. Of course, my group, again, was not the one to win the lollipop. She won a lollipop. But I did pick up a lot of trash, so that made me feel good as well. Did you want to talk about the painted flowers?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so my group, we chose like the design for the mural, and it's supposed to like show a person, either a male or female. They have their hand out and they're pretty much blowing flowers, and like the flowers are growing from the ground, and it's supposed to like show hope for Jakova that they're gonna grow and like rebuild after what they've been through.
There were words on it that I was actually in the group with Jordan that designed the mural, and we thought it was kind of boring with just like the pictures, so we decided to put words on it, and it was light breeze, great impact, and it was written in English and then in Albanian.
Okay, so at the end of day 5, we drove down to Rogova, which is like a little village in the mountains. And we got there pretty late because, as you like heard, on day 5 we did a lot of activities. So we just had dinner there on day 5, and then on day 6, it's really early in the morning, right after breakfast at like 9 in the morning, we started hiking up the mountain. And yeah, it was a trek. It was a trek, guys.
Is that right?
No. Oh, go on. Okay. When we got to the top of the mountain, there was this little spring, lake, pond thing. You see it in the picture. We all fought over what we were gonna call it. It doesn't matter. And if you wanted to go in there, you had the choice to like swim in there, and it was actually really fun. There was like little black bugs in there, and there's like these cute little like salamander creatures. I don't even know what they were. They were cute. That was really fun. And day 7, on day 7, we headed back to the camp, and it was our final night there. They talked about the choice activities a little bit ago, like the nature art and video production. They had like presentations that they wanted to show us, because video production, they made like a video of the 7 or 8 days that we were there. They made like a little video and they showed it on that night, and it was like really cool, and it was really nice to see that video. And nature art, we went out and we saw everything that they made, and it was really funny because we went out to go see everything that they made in nature like super late at night, and it was like dark, and we all had like our little flashlights on, and we were like in a giant group, and it was really fun. We also had this like water Olympics, water wars, and this was the first time that Camp Toka had ever like done anything like that, and it was actually really, really fun, slightly dangerous. Some people may have slipped and fell. It was great times, great times. yeah, and then the remainder of the night, we just like spent time together. We had like little buddies that we had chosen, like we had gotten in the beginning of the camp, and like you had a little like bucket that had their name on it, and you could like put little prizes like or whatever in it. Like you could just give them stuff, and we found out who our person was that night, and we also had like a little music dance thing that night too. It was really fun.
Day 8, our group, well, we all said goodbye to everybody at the camp, which is pretty sad, but an even more exciting thing is we got to go back to Jakova, and there we were warmly welcomed to a nice hotel with wonderful showers. We were able to catch up on some rest, and we got to walk around the city by ourselves and just embracing the beauty, and like there was a beautiful sunset that night, and they have a numerous amount of cafes on one street. So just phenomenal. And so we went there, we had a couple macchiatos, which Kosovo is known for, and they're delicious. So that was day 8. And then while in the city, we met back up with 4 students who had also gone to Camp Toka. They attend the high school in Jakova. So they took us around Jakova to some of their favorite shops and their favorite dessert stores. And we also met with the mayor, and after meeting with the mayor, he invited us to go to a city council meeting, which Michaela talked about earlier.
So some of our next steps is to make sure people kind of know what the Sister City exactly means. So we've been kind of expanding through our high school with our International Culture Club, and we actually have our foreign exchange students automatically joined into this. And we started a thing where whoever's in the club brings a friend, and hopefully their friend brings a friend, and we're trying to make it a larger club. We will be having a 4-H camp this summer, and we hope to be counselors there with younger students. And I think there's some from Kosovo also coming to be counselors. And we really just want to have more voices from the youth throughout.
I feel like the youth should have more of a say too. When they were there, obviously they are a new country, so they have more of a say. So I feel like we should have more of a say and get that more out there, because we are the future, and I feel like it's important to address what we need to say. And yes.
Okay. Well, this was very eye-opening for me, this whole trip. This is my first time out of the country, so it's pretty drastic for me. The most important thing that I felt on this trip was the meeting with the city council. They had probably a group of 10 students from their high school there too, and they were trying to get information out of them, but sadly they didn't speak as much. But they are looking towards their youth and trying to get them to be active in their community. And just kind of the opposite of us, because I know when I had gone to high school, there had been giant groups of people in clubs and trying to get out and do stuff, and we're eager to do that. But I think we just need more of an opportunity to do that with our whole community.
An impact this experience has gave me is to really be open-minded towards other cultures and other people. I know within the camp there was multiple people from different areas, and there were times where it was hard to understand each other's culture versus our own, but in the end you really learned from each other and saw that things aren't the same through other people's eyes. And it really made me realize to be really more open-minded.
Okay, so an impact that this has had on me is like we mentioned earlier, when we were doing this, when we were painting the mural and planting the flowers, we also picked up garbage. And I never really noticed before actually how bad the pollution was in the world, because I never America looks really clean, okay, compared to Kosovo, and it's not a bad thing. Kosovo's a really, really pretty country, okay? But they have a really bad garbage problem, and that really impacted me because I don't really. It's just, I'm not. Yeah.
Okay, so we would just like to thank all of the people who partnered with us. As you guys can see, they are so much more self-aware. They are able to look through the eyes of others now. I think one of the things that was really most shocking to us was the amount of garbage that was everywhere. I know they talked about it a lot, but it's a very large problem for them.
Water and the
Yeah,
lakes.
it's like in the water. It's like
When we were coming
everywhere.
down out of the mountains, we picked up garbage as well, and we filled probably about 6 giant garbage bags, and we didn't hardly put a dent on it. I mean, there's
Yeah.
this, like, it was a national park where we were. I mean, it was just, so that was very impactful that we noticed that, and I think that from now on, we'll take better care of nature as we go. They've become much more self-aware. They're much more willing to step out of their comfort zones and be able to look through the eyes of others. We could not have had this experience without your guys' support, as well as other people in the community, like the Community Foundation, Hy-Vee, the Iowa Fireworks Company, kind of relevant tonight. Helped pay for us to get there. Kiwanis Club of Fort Dodge, the Meltzer's Foundation, the State 4-H, also our Webster County 4-H Foundation, and Tom Dorsey. And a huge thank you to Don Larson as well. We could not have prepared and gotten ready for this without all of you helping us.
Don kind of told me this before we came in here, but Camp Toka actually discounted waived our
whole
cost. Yeah,
cost for the camp.
about $1,000 worth that we didn't have to pay thanks to them. Too.
We weren't able to raise quite enough money.
Iowa Fireworks didn't give you enough.
I know. We'll work on them if you guys extend that. They are willing to donate again next year.
And follow Mandere is thank you in Albanian.
Do you guys have any questions?
The question I had was what you addressed last, and that was how did it impact you, and what was it when you got there that was most surprising to you, and how did that impact you? And I think that some of you were able to really answer that. I've had the opportunities to travel with groups similar to yours, and I know that as a group that it has a very large impact on you. I imagine that your last day at the camp was very tearful. There was lots of hugs and crying, and I'm going to miss you, and we'll email each other, and we'll stay in touch, because I know how much it means during that time there. And what I would say to you from someone who's led youth groups like this is don't let the fire that it put in you fade. Because sometimes when you get back, you get used to just going back to school and falling into your own routine. And so every once in a while, just take time to relive it, put yourself back in that moment, and re-spark that flame if you ever think that it's going out.
I think we're not done traveling. This is just the beginning.
Good. There's a lot of world to see.
So in the interest of future trips like these, if you could go back and change something you did or change something about the trip, would you change anything? What would it be?
Good question.
I think I would have liked to see more of Jakova. It was kind of just the camp for 8 days, and then it was like 2 or 3 at Jakova, but
Yeah.
I would like to stay there longer.
Yeah, spend more time there. Honestly, like there was so much to see, and I feel like we were so rushed on some parts, like definitely rushed on some parts, and I feel like we could have definitely like got more into it. So.
Do you think it would make a difference to put some of the fun stuff in the beginning? Because I imagine after 8 days on camp, you're like, oh.
No, because the camp was fun.
Okay.
I feel like
I didn't say it wasn't fun. I just thought you might be tired.
We talked a little bit about that, but we met our friends. We met our friends at camp.
Yeah, we did.
And so we wouldn't have known them prior to. So yeah, we kind of talked
But
about
then the
that,
experience wouldn't have maybe been as fun at the end if you didn't know other people. That makes sense.
They were with us the whole time we were there. Our Jacova friends are amazing.
Yeah, I'm still in touch with like half of them. I'm like,
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you very
That-
much.
That will, thank you for coming. That will conclude the workshop on Kosovo, and again, as a reminder, we will reconvene the workshop on fireworks immediately after the council meeting, so stick around. Do we want to take a minute break here, or do we want to go right into the council meeting? Okay, let's go right into the council meeting. Let's see here. I'll call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to take the roll.
Yes, Mayor Bemrick. Council members Flattery.
Here.
Halter. Conrad.
Here.
Fritz. Allstott.
Here.
Minky. Hill.
Here.
Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we do at the beginning of each council meeting, I'd like to recite the character count statement. Fort Dodge is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we would ask that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 2, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda tonight?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any good news?
Just thanks to Landlord Association for putting on the forum last week. Growth Alliance has a forum, I believe, on Wednesday night.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Correct. So, as I'm the only one not up for re-election, it was very easy for me, but I would always encourage people to come out to these forums.
I would also like to thank Dawn for putting together a cup of sugar yesterday out at Iowa Central. Very good presentation, a documentary on the history of Kosovo, a little bit more of the political aspect, a lot of politicians talking, and we got a chance to hear Dr. Kenny give a little bit of talk about his experiences over there. So thank you, Dawn, for putting that on.
Any other good news? If not, let's move on to item 3, which is a public hearing.
Public hearing to consider proposed water stop box assessments.
I declare this public meeting open and ask the clerk if there were any public comments.
There were no written comments.
No written comments, okay? Any comments from the public? Any comments from the table? If not, we'll close this public hearing and move on to item 3A.
Certified to Webster County Treasurer, water stop box assessments for collection with property taxes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to move agenda item 3A as read.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any comments from the public? Any comments from the table? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that item 3A passed unanimously. Move on to item 4, which is another public hearing.
Public hearing to consider the disposal of a vacant lot at the corner of 10th Avenue North and North 16th Street in Fort Dodge, Cook Addition, Fort Dodge, Webster County, Iowa.
I declare this public meeting open and ask the clerk if there were any written comments.
There were no written comments.
Any comments from the public? Any comments from the table? Seeing none, to close this public hearing and move on to item 4A.
Resolution approving the offering of property for sale and method of selecting a developer on 10th Avenue North and North 16th Street.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to move agenda item 4A as read.
We have a motion and a second. Again, any comments from the public? Any comments from the table? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of item 4A indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose indicate by saying nay. Let the record show that item 4A pass unanimously. Move on to item 5, return to table. Item 5A.
First consideration of ordinance number 2273, an ordinance amending ordinance number 1489 of the City of Fort Dodge to consider text amendments to section 17.07.12 Shopping Center Commercial Zoning District.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to return to the table the first consideration of ordinance number 2273.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? If you do, come to the podium. Yes, just return the table.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Nevin Mulholland, 833 Northwood Avenue, here on behalf of Herzog. Mr. Mayor, I'm here today to discuss this return of the now amended previous zoning ordinance for a shopping center, which was previously brought here a week ago. A couple things I wanted to point out. Number one is this, is that so to clear up any misunderstandings, the recommendations made by city staff concerning the amendments came from city staff. They did not come from us. And that included the elimination of or a change in administrative review and oversight. And that change occurred, as I read their report from a couple weeks ago, was because they were trying to bring the zoning ordinance into compliance with what we now see in the 21st century in various municipalities throughout the United States, certainly in northwest and central Iowa. In particular, they noted, and they again quote in the report to you, staff has researched a number of mall developments throughout the United States and is finding that more cities are allowing the additional uses and providing for a less restrictive review. The amendment that you now have before you does provide plenty of oversight and review by planning and zoning, by city staff. It has to comply with the site plan ordinance, with the comprehensive plan, as well as the zoning ordinances that you have now. The key here also is that you've added language to this particular zoning ordinance that you'll find in no other part of any other zoning ordinance, whether it be arterial, commercial, or otherwise. And what it provides is that it promotes the health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the city. And that is under two different sections here concerning site plan review. Now what has happened here is you have interjected a subjective requirement into the requirement section of the ordinance. The ordinances already provide, and in fact your ordinance specifically provides that we're creating all zoning ordinances for the purpose to provide adequate light and air, to prevent the overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentration of population, to regulate the use of land, and promote the health, moral safety, and general welfare in the city of Fort Dodge. It's in the ordinance. It applies to all zoning ordinances, and it's a stated purpose. The point I'm trying to make is when you put it into the requirement area of any zoning ordinance like SC, now you've taken, and we have very specific requirements, whether it be the size of the lot, the setbacks, parking requirements, all very certain, which does not require any subjective analysis. And now you've put subjective language in there that is subject to interpretation. As a result, you have created an ordinance now that, with us amending them, should be tight, and it's just the opposite. And so we are asking a couple things. In reconsidering, and again, note, this was not our amendment, but it was city staffing, that we do have the appropriate oversight necessary with planning and zoning and city staff. We don't need another level, or if you will, of review. And certainly this language that we already have as a stated purpose should be removed. It shouldn't go into the requirements section of that zoning ordinance. Thank you.
Nevin, I got a question for you.
All right.
So I get you're asking about the language and what would be subsection A. Are you asking for changes into subsection I as well?
In the intent?
No.
Let me look real quick. I just got this.
A would be the intent section, correct? I
Right.
don't have it in front of me.
A's
I is the basic review section, isn't it?
That's a site plan review
Yes,
section.
that's site plan review. Yeah, Nevin, those are the two phrases that I am referring to in paragraph 1 of the amendment now, where the last line provides that it promotes the health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the city, and also in paragraph 2 of I, which again is the language, the promotion of health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the city. My concern is that, Nevin, it's a purpose, it's a stated purpose, nobody argues with that. But when you put it into the requirements section of the zoning ordinance, and the requirements are to fulfill the stated purpose, that's why we have those zoning requirements. Now you take and you put this subjective element in there. You or anybody in the city council might say, you know, I know it meets all the zoning requirements, but I don't think it promotes the general welfare of the community. And I think that's problematic. That's the whole basis with zoning ordinances, is they're certain and they're definitive, and anybody that's going to develop or redevelop and inject a lot of money in this community is going to know where they stand.
Getting too close to my mic. Are you guys okay with the P and Z and city council review and I?
You know, certainly okay with P and Z, and certainly okay with complying with the site plan as well as the comprehensive plan. And I'm okay with city staff recommendation also. I mean, that's what we hire these people for. That's what they're trained and educated to do. I just think you put another level of approval there that's unnecessary. I mean, to me, with the city council, you are a policy creating body, but then we have this planning and zoning in place, we have our city staffing in place to advise and to dig down into this and tell us whether or not it complies or not. And if they say it doesn't, it doesn't. So what I'm recommending is that we eliminate it going all the way up to city council, and then the last phrase that you and I have discussed.
So what you're saying, Nevin, is having that language in the site plan review could inhibit a potential developer from developing in the community or a development project because they know it's just another step, and that in the end they could invest all this money, and then the final step we arbitrarily deny that.
It's uncertain.
It's
and
uncertain.
Certainty is everything. When somebody's looking to come into this community, believe me, I'm learning this every day about investing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's why we try to be very precise. And that's why I believe city planning made the recommendations they did to you, is because the old zoning ordinance said that the city council could disapprove, period. I mean, they could just simply disapprove without justification. And I think that we still have some of that here, but certainly that language, Dave, is subject to interpretation. And even though they meet all the requirements of SC zoning, theoretically, you could say, you know what, but it doesn't meet what we considered the general welfare provision under requirements now. And it is a requirement as it's now placed. And nowhere else, by the way, no other zoning does that language show up anywhere. Certainly not in arterial commercial. And in fact, there is the oversight in arterial commercial is nothing like what even's being proposed here.
It's my understanding that you're all right with the fact that we look at the comprehensive plan and the site plan review ordinance?
Totally.
Okay. Then how do you explain in the site plan and ordinance, under purpose, the third sentence, the regulations of this ordinance promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the city and the efficient use of city resources?
It's talking about intent again, but then it goes through the specifics
But it's
under
the same,
requirement.
it's the same language that's included in this
And it's
amendment.
And Terry, it's the same language that opens up your every ordinance. It's a preamble, but it's not a specific requirement as what you placed it here.
But under the site plan review ordinance, and Chris, you can correct me if this is wrong, the city council does not have any influence on that. That's Board of Adjustment, which is a legal requirement. Is that correct?
Chris, come on up.
Carissa Harvey, Senior Planner. The site plan ordinance, if you are requesting to waive any portion of that ordinance, you would have to go to the Board of Adjustment to request a variance. Now that specific verbiage is in the front of the site plan ordinance. It's not part of the checklist that the site plan ordinance requires. So basically, it is established within the intent of the site plan ordinance up at the beginning.
That's where I'm having trouble differentiating because I'm viewing subsection A as intent
Yeah.
in this.
And the way it's differentiated is its intent. It's not a specific requirement, is where I'm coming from, Nevin. We'll leave it in intent. Nobody's denying that that's why we have the following requirements, is because the intent is that we want to provide for that particular purpose, to promote the health, safety, morals, or general welfare. It's a general statement of purpose. And then after that, we say, here are our requirements and our regulations so as to satisfy that intent. And you're very specific, going down every one of them. There's absolutely no subjectivity to any of those. We know what it takes to qualify for SC zoning after that. And it's intended to promote that intent.
So if I was to put this in layman's terms instead of lawman's terms,
You'll probably do much better.
what I'm hearing you say is that with that verbiage, that the intent is to do right. What I'm hearing you say is that if we put that under a requirement, then that can be too subjective, and a person who may sit up here or on another board can say, well, yeah, but I don't like that particular thing, and that it really has nothing to do with zoning or site plan, that it really just has to do with that person's opinion. But if it's gone through Board of Adjustment, it's gone through P&Z, and we've changed the zoning, then you're saying that should be good enough.
Right. I mean, there is plenty.
I gotta dumb this down for myself, man.
No, you haven't dumbed it down at all. I mean, that's what I'm trying to explain, is that there is plenty of, or sufficient oversight. I mean, oversight deluxe right now, and that's okay. There doesn't need to be another level of approval here. You've got the people that you hire to assist you with these matters. Would be city planning, and then you've got an independent committee of lay people representing the public on planning and zoning, and that evaluate these, let's say a development or a redevelopment, and determine whether or not they have complied with our zoning ordinance. And the second part of that is, if you leave it, you put in requirements, this general language, which is our purpose of promoting health, safety, morals, or general welfare, it would be possible, and I'm not suggesting this would happen, but it could happen, where you may say, you know what, they're redeveloping out at the shopping center, they're developing a pad site, and it's going to be a restaurant across from another restaurant. So you know what, we got enough fast food restaurants in this town. We don't want any more. We don't.
They're unhealthy, so I don't want.
Well, unhealthy, and they don't promote the general well, exactly, of the public. But that's not what this is intended to do, and that's not what you are charged with doing when enforcing zoning ordinances. And so did I explain that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't want to be like the mayor of New York either.
I'm not sure.
But you are from Iowa City.
I guess my thinking in this is the ordinance as it sits today is exceptionally restrictive in the language that it has. Requires extensive oversight by P&Z and then by City Council. The first change that came to us basically said, check off site plan by staff. That's good enough. I'm hesitant on my end because we have two shopping center districts in the city of Fort Dodge, two districts that are crucial to the economic development areas of Fort Dodge along the corridors. And when this ordinance was originally crafted in 78 or whenever it was, they realized that through this ordinance. Granted, things changed throughout the years, but...
You born yet in 78?
No,
Okay.
not even close. And, yeah, if you want to say that, I guess. But to have city council approval, to have P&Z approval as part of this, not just a rubber stamp on whether or not you have enough bushes in your site plan or enough trees planted, helps ensure that these two huge areas that are vitally important to the general welfare of the city maintain that importance to the level of the city. And additionally, it allows for public input. Again, I just stressing the importance of these two areas. And I'm not saying this to try to hamper any redevelopment of the mall. By all means, I think I've set it up here over and over that that's the goal. But the way I look at the ordinance that's up on the screen right now, it's incredibly less restrictive from where it is. The review, instead of an extensive review by P&Z, basically says go through P&Z and go through the city council, check off site plan, check off comprehensive plan. And that language of the promotion of the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the city, again, falls back to intent, just so that taking my legal background of that, if I read it as city council reviews based off a site plan and comprehensive plan, and it checks off your landscaping requirements, all that, that's great. But does P&Z, does planning and zoning know, and again, going back to the ordinance as it's written right now, that they do have some discretion? I don't think, I get where it can be a what-if scenario of a council on a whim throwing away something like this, but to jump from extensive restrictions in this district and amending it over to basically a short checklist for a site plan, that's a big jump, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm comfortable enough with that big of a jump. I think this is a large jump that's not quite to where you want it to be, but I still think it's a large jump.
I'd tell you a couple things, Nevin. First of all, if we look at the language, you've already said it in the intent. There is absolutely, and you've said it at the beginning of our zoning ordinances also. I mean, it's very clear what the purpose and objective is of zoning ordinances.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? So are you fine with the language in A but not in I? Is
Yeah, I
kind
can
of what
live
I'm
with
getting
that.
out of you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I grant you, that sets forth, again, the intent. I don't think it's necessary, but I'm okay with it, okay? Maybe I misunderstood.
Okay.
But once you put it into the requirements, I think you're creating a potential problem there, because now it is a requirement, it's not about intent. And the whole idea behind the zoning ordinances, the permitted uses, accessory uses, is to be specific as to what, to carry out the intent of the zoning ordinance, which we talk about. This is how we get there. This is why we create these specific regulations. And if we comply with those, what I would tell you, Nevin, is we comply with those, and planning, well, city planning first goes through, and you know what detailed in-depth reports they do, and they look at it, and then they give a report. Planning and zoning then studies it. I mean, there is plenty of oversight there. And frankly, the requirements are very specific. There's no fudging on any of these things. They're very specific.
Part of the problem is, Nevin, is we don't know what goes into the site plan review because we're not involved in the site plan review. Never have been. We've tried to be, but we aren't. The other thing is that you're looking at a council that's held responsible for everything that happens in this town, be it silo art, be it a haunted house, be it anything else. So there's a certain amount of political aspect that we have to be responsive to the public for. And when you take away the right of the public to participate in these decisions by interacting with council people, and I understand where you're coming from, but to me, we have to keep the council involved in this just simply because we're responsible to answer to the public for our actions. That's a fact of life.
Well, you know, but
And now you want to make it a requirement. That's what
Yeah.
would make me nervous, is now you're required to do that, so you're required to give an
But
answer.
Jeff, I disagree. For the last 39 years, we've had this ability. Now all of a sudden, they're taking it away from us. The zoning law has always said that the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission has the oversight to make the decisions on all these things.
Is that just for shopping center?
Yes.
So nothing else?
as an example, arterial commercial, the Sears property rezoned AC, no such oversight, none, with the city council. It's the same, you know, the development they'll be doing, it will be the same type of redevelopment that we'll eventually do. But there is not that oversight at all, none. And you don't, this language that you're trying to insert into shopping center appears nowhere in arterial commercial. Very, you know, but for, you know, the bulk regulations are very similar now. And if not the same, I mean, I'm no expert in this, but I do know this. I went through the AC and no such oversight, none, like what you're proposing for SC, and no such language on promoting, you know, health, safety, and public or general welfare is included as a requirement, or even as intent.
But again, going back to that Hutton property, when we looked at that, we did have a site plan. We knew what their intentions were. At this point, we have no idea what you're planning. I mean, you're coming at us with a blank piece of paper with no direction.
Well, and we don't know yet. We won't know.
Well, they did. And that's what I'm saying. It was a lot easier to act on something when we knew what was coming.
But it wasn't an issue, Terry. The only decision to be made there was whether or not you rezone it AC. And that's a preliminary plan. I can tell you that plan has changed at least 5 times from what you've seen. I've seen the 5th one just recently. You know, I'm not here to get into a fight about the Hutton deal. That's not my intent whatsoever. But you brought it up. What are the other zoning regulations? And none of them have this oversight. None of them have this language that you're proposing to put in here. And frankly, we're doing the same thing, or will be doing the same thing. We have a commercial retail center that we hope to, as time goes on, redevelop, which will be in phases. Because we have standing tenants there. We have a building. We won't be dealing with just black earth.
To be fair on that issue, we do have black dirt and agricultural land right behind Target that falls under shopping center and would fall under this ordinance as well. That, I mean, a lot of the focus is on the Crossroads Mall area, but, and maybe that's a question for staff if we've contacted any other owners of shopping center in regards to these text changes.
I'm curious what staff's opinion is, if they're comfortable giving. What I see in the general page of description is that you recommend this, but I believe that the last amendment was recommended without this being in it. So if you're comfortable, hate to put you on the spot, but I am. I'm curious what staff's opinion is, because I try to rely on them as more of the experts. I'm just some guy that got enough votes to sit up here.
I guess as a segue to that too, we go from a recommendation 2 weeks ago that has completely different language than what it is today. And what changed besides us tabling this?
Well, I can tell you, we put together the last one based on, again, staff put it together based on, primarily focused on the uses and in discussions with the mall on their potential redevelopment of the mall. Because the truth is that throughout the United States, malls like this mall have to be redeveloped, and there has to be other uses, and there has to be other ways to do it, or they're just going to become vacant pieces of ground. And you see that all over the United States. So when we were the initial approach was through Johnson Law to rezone the mall property to arterial commercial. And I had a conversation with Patrick Listerman, who's with the Herzog Group. I said, hey, we're thinking about, we need to redo the way we do shopping center anyways. We know where you're at with as far as needing to do, having flexibility to do the type of things you want to do. How about we take a crack at redoing the shopping center district, and let's just put the rezoning an arterial commercial on hold and see whether that's acceptable. So that's the approach we've taken and been to by that. So what we proposed, did not have the city council having, I mean, still site plan comes into play, would have come into play with a significant redevelopment. And it comes into play every place there's a significant redevelopment. Every zoning. So when we redid the shopping center, we took that plan commission and city council review out of there, because it's nowhere else. And that's where there was an objection, and Councilmember Menke tabled it, and I can't recall who was the second, but there was an objection to removing the city council's review of that, primarily because the shopping center areas zoned are predominantly very large and very significant chunks of ground, and as I think Councilman Menke kind of articulated, that because they're big, they're significant enough that the city council should have that say-so in it, or, because they're going to be held accountable to development that have some say-so in it. So then we proposed this language in there to kind of, as the compromise to get, I guess to fulfill both needs, with having the zoning be more flexible, more uses, smaller setbacks to meet what the Herzog Group wanted, and then to have the council oversight that Councilmember Menke and Councilmember Conrad have been articulate that they wanted to see in there. So that's really why we're here today, and where we're at, or what we have today was from that compromise.
Can I give you my what if scenario? Is what if you redevelop for a good purpose, and we end up with an outlot development that ends up being some garage sale flea market that meets landscaping, meets setbacks, meets all that. What route or what oversight would we have as a council? I mean, because city staff has to look at it and go, well, yeah, it hits the check marks, but is it best for that area? Is it best for our core? That's my lingering concern. I'm not looking for more control to direct each and every aspect of development. That sliver of oversight to ensure that we don't have a completely off the wall purpose coming into our core area of the city.
Let me answer it this way, first of all, Nevin. I mean, you've defined permitted uses within the zoning ordinance, number one. Number two, if you're concerned with, let me give you an example, and I hate to go back to Hutton, but you've seen a site plan for Hutton. There's nothing that would prevent them from putting in whatever it was you just described that you'd be concerned with. Nothing whatsoever. I mean, at the end of the day, under permitted uses in SC, there are only 7 things basically that are permitted that allow us, getting down to whether or not you like who maybe the potential tenant may be. Now you're judging what falls within the area of general welfare, and you may. Councilman Halter said, well, I have no problem with that. And Councilman Conrad says, I disagree. And now you're micromanaging. But you are protected. You have the permitted uses as to what we can and can't do. And Dave's right. They talked with us about that, and we said, hey, here's what we're looking at, and there were a couple of additions. All, hotel, motels, clinics, multifamily residential. I mean, I know there's some question I've heard, well, what would we ever do there? But if you look at any shopping center now, we're seeing mixed use. You go down to Jordan Creek. I just did one in Kansas City that we combine condos and apartments right into the commercial complex has been extremely successful. We're seeing more and more of that.
My opinion's always been that a traditional mall is something that has been going away for at least 2 decades.
And you are right. It's a dinosaur.
It surprised me that Jordan Creek even, or whatever it's called, they even built a mall.
Yeah.
But seeing the way that they did it is the way that you can make it work, because a traditional covered mall, folks, they just travel. They don't exist. You go to new development, it's not a new mall, not in the fashion that we see a mall out there. And I've seen that's been changing for at least 2 decades.
In commercial retail, everything's changed, and it's changing as we speak. And you're right, we've got to be able to change with it, but it promotes a real challenge.
I also find the irony in that we want this much oversight over a mall, but if it comes to residential, doesn't matter.
I'm not going there, jeez.
I did, that's okay.
I got enough problems
I
right
might
now.
go there again later.
All right.
Councilman Conroy, one thing I'd add, and this is kind of an unscientific observation over the 10 years. So actually, we've had site plans since I've been here, so it's been in effect for 11 years. Is a development like a flea market is so marginally profitable, they're not going to be able to do the type of things you have to do to be compliant with site plan anyways. And I've just noticed that in other times where we've had some issues working with potential developments on site plan. If it's kind of a marginal deal, meaning it's, and you know what I mean, without naming names or defining it better.
Fort Dodge Baseball Association trying to comply with the site plan.
Yeah, you get it. It's not easy to comply with site plan, and so marginal type of businesses are going to struggle to do that.
Here's kind of my final thoughts. I'd like the language to stay in A, and I'd like the city council oversight to still be a part of this. I'm completely fine with removing that final sentence. Check and going through I, that mentions promotes health, safety, morals, and general welfare for the city, because it'll be mentioned in the intent. It'll be mentioned in the comprehensive plan. But yeah, is that?
So you're saying keep it in the intent, but remove it from the requirement?
From your requirements in I.
Okay.
And first of all, I appreciate your consideration. I appreciate you coming in with an open mind and having this dialogue with me tonight. And that'd be helpful. I would hope, though, you and I agree, you can keep it in intent. There's no challenge there. But I feel like it's just another layer that we have to deal with if you keep the city council in play on this. And that's why you have planning and zoning. And that's why you have city planning. To do those things, to make those assessments, those evaluations. So that's how I'd respond, Nevin.
Okay.
If this is a city staff question of city staff, if we remove that, are you guys satisfied with removal of that language in those paragraphs 1 and 2 under site plan review?
Yeah, it's an intent. It's fine to remove those.
Looks to me like it's just under paragraphs 1 and 2. I see it under intent, but we're looking at keeping that under the intent.
Keep it under intent. The paragraphs, you can see the paragraphs that are up there. I got the last, it's actually the last phrase of the last sentence of paragraph 1 and 2 under section I, site plan review, would be what we're talking about, correct? I just want to make sure I got that right.
I'd be okay with that, but it seems like in my opinion, there's more to this issue than just the text language. I think we as a council need to have a better understanding. What is the future of that whole shopping mall? You know, we've got 2 owners. We got the former owners of the Sears building. We have the Herzog. And there's been a lot of friction between 2. I think, and that's a huge part, that's a big tax base of what we have. It's a huge part of the future of this community, and retail is a big part of our community. We as a council and staff, we have to understand how this all comes together and have a better this technical language, I think most of us would agree that it's pretty technical, we don't quite understand it, but I think we need to understand the big picture of the vision of what this mall could be and sort out the language later, but that's my concern, and we've got to resolve this, and I know we got to go through all this legal language, but I think we've got to come together where we go with this mall, and that's very important to me personally. I don't know what that means. Okay. Is there any, if we're going to amend this? Vote on the return. Okay. Let's first vote on the return to the table. You want to read it again, Jeff?
Certainly. First consideration of ordinance number 2273. An ordinance amending ordinance number 1489 of the City of Fort Dodge to consider text amendments to section 17.07.12 Shopping Center Commercial Zoning District. The motion to return to table was made by Councilman Minke, seconded by Councilman Hill.
And I realize that we've been a motion and a second to return. I just want to make sure what we're voting on. So we're voting on the language as is. Everybody understand what we're voting on? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Wait, aren't we only voting to return it to the table?
Let's have this vote to return to the table, then we'll take another motion to.
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank
Do we
you.
have a motion to return it to the table?
It's already been made. You got to vote on that one.
Okay, let's vote on to return to the table. I'm sorry. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Now,
Mr.
Now-
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I'd like to amend the motion to remove from Section I, Site Plan Review, Section 1 and 2, the words "and it promotes health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the city."
I would second that.
we have a motion and a second. Okay, any comments from the public? Any further comments from the table?
Does that remove our oversight, though? Because I still see that it
No.
says the other. So, because it would still read then that City Council, Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council shall review and ensure development. Wait, no, it was a part ahead of that. City's Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council, no, where'd it go?
It's just taking out the generalities.
It's right before the.
City Council, under item 2, City Council shall indicate the reasons for disapproval or approval subject to conditions based on city's site plan ordinance, comprehensive plan.
So the way it now reads, city
So it would
council would
remove the
still
subjectivity
require
of it.
approval or disapproval.
Right.
So it would remove the subjectivity of it, but would still allow us to use the comp plan and site plan to make or break a decision.
Right.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I had to dumb it down for myself again.
Just to clarify on it, the language in paragraph 1 is slightly different than the language of paragraph 2, and you mentioned specific language in your motion. Would it just be following the last semicolon?
Yes.
Any other comments?
I'm glad I'm not a lawyer.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that the amendment passed unanimously.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the second and third reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the second and third readings. Any comments from the public? Any comments from the table?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, this has been at the council table before, so I'm okay with waiving the second and third readings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anyone speak out against it, so I'm okay with that as well.
All those in favor of waiving the second and third readings indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that we're going to waive the second and third readings, and it was a unanimous vote. Okay, let's move on to item 6, committee and department reports. Do we have any committee and department reports today?
Nope.
Very good. Let's move on to item 7, comments and questions from the public. First of all, not on the agenda. Do we have any comments or questions from the public that's not on the agenda? How about comments and questions from the public on the consent agenda? All right, let's move on to. Pardon me? Yeah, that's correct. Let's move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing items L and N, as in Nancy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, removing for further discussions item L and N?
Yes.
N, okay.
As in Nevin.
Okay, any comments from the public? Any comments from the table? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Let the record show that the consent agenda passed unanimously, removing items L and N. Let's move on to item L.
Resolution approving the disposal of property at 801 South 15th Street.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would make a motion to approve item L.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the table? I do have a comment, and the only reason why, I'm going to vote in favor of this, but the only reason why I wanted to discuss it, I just, procedurally, have we taken any steps when we look at the disposal of public property like this? I don't know if we want to make it a requirement, but I know we've had issues in the past that, some of the parties that we've sold it to have not had a financial commitment or have the cash to make the improvements, or even the in some cases maybe even the dollars to buy it. And then secondly, are we requiring upon the sale of a certain time that the parties that buy these properties require them to pull permits? I know there was an issue several years ago when the party that bought a property a year later, when it was time to consummate the deal, he pulled the permits the day that he asked for the extension. And so I know we've asked this question in the past. Are we requiring that? I think it's almost a must that we have some proof that they have the financial backing, and secondly, that require them to pull the permits. I don't know if anybody wants to staff want to make comment on that.
Don't we already have ordinances that require permits to be pulled before work can be done?
Well,
It's not
we do
already
now.
an ordinance?
Okay, go ahead, Vicki.
Vicki Reek, Business Affairs and Community Growth. We did require proof of financial ability, and we have that in our office. We just didn't put it in the packet for privacy reasons. And yes, we will be having a checklist, the one you're talking about. We are still in the process of doing that. We're putting it on our calendars so that we check periodically to see how the progress is going, and if it's not going like we had hoped, then we're contacting the owners.
Very good. Thank you, Vicki.
Will this be a real estate contract then, not a special warranty deed?
This one is, yes, a real estate contract.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that item L passed unanimously. Item N.
Resolution to approve amendment to Board of Adjustment procedural rules regarding change in official meeting time.
Make a motion to move item N.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
I asked to have this be pulled because I will be voting against it. I think that public meetings in regards to adjusting zoning rules or even changing zoning, that those meetings should take place at a time where at least most people in the public can be in attendance. And I think that most people are still at work at 4:30. So I would like for the meeting time to stay at 5:30. So I will not be voting in support of item N.
Mr. Chairman, or Mayor Pro Tem, Margie, could you come up here and let us know why they wanted to make this change at all? Do you know that, or is it her, or is it Carissa?
Did you call her Marty?
Margie, Maggie, I'm sorry.
Maggie Carlin, Associate Planner. The Board of Adjustment just brought that up during, would have been their September meeting. Just they were wondering, is it something that they could do? So we kind of reviewed the Board of Adjustment procedural rules, and it spells out that if they ever propose an amendment to their meeting time, that it would have to go through City Council for review too. So Board of Adjustment, typically, so applications are due 3 weeks prior. The board meets the first Tuesday of each month. And so during that, usually it's about a month out or so that an applicant would know that they would have to go to the city's Board of Adjustment. So I think the board felt like with that month.
It's not the applicant being able to make it there I'm concerned about. It's the public being able to make it there if they don't agree with changes that the person is asking for, or variances or exemptions to the rules and site plan that already exist. And my other reason for that is, so if they pass something, it's always been my understanding as far as Board of Adjustment is if they say it's good, then it's good, and that we don't get a say in that. So they have their 4:30 meeting, no one from the public's able to go there, they exempt something or allow a variance, then all those people are going to come here because they can get here at 6 o'clock, and they're going to let us know they don't agree with it, and they never have the opportunity to even go to the Board of Adjustment meeting.
Maggie, do you regularly attend those Board of Adjustment meetings?
Yeah, I'm the staff that helps oversee
And they're at
those.
5:30 now?
Yep.
What's the attendance like at those?
Typically it's the applicants. Every once in a while, it's been a while since we've had a bigger meeting, but I think every once in a while, if it's a hot topic, there can be some from the public, but more often than not, it's the applicants who attend.
I like to see meetings later on in the evening for city council and maybe even to some extent planning and zoning, but I don't know if I'm of that belief with the Board of Adjustment.
I
But
think,
Board of Adjustment has more power than planning and zoning.
If they're not coming at 5:30,
The only way we can change something Board of Adjustment does is by suing them in a court of law. Planning and zoning, we can override anything they say. Board of Adjustment, we cannot.
the way I look at Board of Adjustment, a lot of these, well, they're unpaid volunteer positions, and it might be hard getting volunteers after a 4:30 meeting because you're cutting into their personal time too.
They still have the right to submit written comments, don't they? If they can't make it.
Yep. And
So
I
they
share-
still have an avenue of input.
Yep.
Okay.
If something does become a hot topic, could they change their hours for that one meeting?
Yeah, I just have to make sure it was communicated to the board, and then we also publish in the paper. So I think there's wording in the procedural rules that, yeah, they can have special meetings or meeting times.
But also, I'm thinking about people who's serving on that board. If they come in at 4:30 and they have a job, that's going to be kind of hard to find people to want to serve on that board, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess the current board was all okay with that 4:30 time, but I guess we have to consider that for the future too. But
Okay.
I think they know what they got into ahead of time. They knew it was a volunteer position. They knew that it was going to be at 5:30.
Okay. Any other comments from the table? Any comments from the public?
I got, I guess, one comment from
Yeah.
the table yet. The other night at the forum at the Landlords Association, special meeting times being at 5 o'clock versus 6 o'clock had come up. It was brought up 5 o'clock is the time people get off work. Maybe that has a lot to do with meeting attendance. So I agree with Jeff on this. I do think that 5:30 is probably a better time. I get these people want to get home and be with their families. It's just the way it has to be, I think, to make it most accessible to the public on this one.
Okay. Any other comments? Let's call for a roll vote here. Councilman Halter.
Nay.
Councilman Conrad.
yes.
Councilman Flattery, I vote in favor of it. Councilman Fritz.
Nay.
Councilman, what is your name? Allstott?
Yeah, there you go. Sorry. I can't believe I did that. No, I'm all confused now. Now you got me all messed up.
Yea or nay?
haven't you? I would say no.
Councilman Minke.
Yeah, there you go.
Councilman Hill. Yes. You want to, what's that at?
It's 4-3, it passed.
Okay. Let's let the record show it passed with a vote of 4-3 with Councilman Halter, Fritz, and Allstott voting against, correct?
Mhm.
All right. Move on. Let's move on to item 9A.
Third consideration of ordinance number 2274, an ordinance providing for a change in zoning from single-family to multiple-family, an update to the city's future land use plan from single-family detached to multifamily.
What's that?
I'll make a motion to approve the third consideration of ordinance number 2274.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment from the public? This is the third consideration. Any comments from the table?
I will be voting no on this, as I have in the past.
Okay, we'll call for a roll vote. Councilman Halter?
Nay.
Councilman Conrad?
Aye.
I vote in favor of myself. Councilman Fritz?
Aye.
Councilman Allstott?
Aye.
Councilman Menke? Councilman Hill? Let the record show that passed with Councilman Halter voting against, so 6-1 vote. Item 10A, final payments.
Change order number 1, reducing the contract in the amount of $31,134.45 and subfinal in the amount of $25,000 from Jensen Builders for the 2017 PCC Patch 926 Loop project.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve change order number 1, subfinal to Jensen Builders for the Patch Loop project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Any comments from the table?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor Pro Temp, I have had a couple complaints on some of the areas there that were not patched, which probably should have been, and I'll be talking to Tony Trotter about that issue.
Okay. Any other comments? Call for a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that passed unanimously. Item 10B.
Pay estimate number 2, final, in the amount of $6,611.40 from Crow River Construction for the 20th Avenue North Water Main Improvements Project.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve pay estimate number 2 to Crow River Construction.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Again, any comments from the public? Any from the table? Call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that passed unanimously. Item 11, comments and questions from public. Any other comments or questions from the public? Now is your time. Seeing none, a call for an adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming. We will restart our workshop on fireworks right now.
Right now?
Or you guys want
We
to
do
take a
it
break?
at 7, just
All
to
right.
give me a few minutes.
We'll start at 7.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Ladies. Sure. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Just 2 of you tonight, huh? Yep. What'd you think? I'm sure you guys understood all that whole text amendment right stuff. I didn't either. It was legal stuff. But it was actually a pretty good meeting to see that kind of stuff. Senior year goal. Where are you guys gonna go next year? School year? Not sure. State's a good place. Megan's down there. She loves it. See you, ladies. Thanks for coming. Oh, it didn't recommend it in the thing?
It was 2 names.
Did we have to choose?
It left it up to us.
Well, I think we chose it. You're right. They gave us that option and they really could What's that? Leadership? Really? You're right.
I didn't know what to talk about.
We didn't choose. I don't either. Yeah, yeah.
Big day.
January 6th. January 6th. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Marrying an Italian. Spinato. My other son's dating another Italian. Her name is Perfect. We didn't choose on that item L. We didn't choose that. Which property? Oh God! Even if we didn't poll it, we would just that would have zoomed right through.
Wow, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though it's consent agenda, if you looked at it, they're starting to do that now. But all of us would agree that we'd have to sell it to not Blanca, but the other guy.
Right. Yeah, but still, it's illegal.
Yes. Pyrrhic.
Yeah. That's fun. That's a good question.
What's so funny?
Yeah.
Will they write the mayor a ticket?
We didn't specify what guy was sold that house to.
I'm assuming that we just all assume. Is he getting clarification on it? I'll say that too, Come on, missed it.
All right. Where's Fritzy?
When they go down and they ask
We'll reconvene. Oops. We'll reconvene our workshop on fireworks. Is this where we're at, Dave?
Ended that workshop with I think we had concluded the discussion on civil liability for owners and legal tenants. But we kind of abruptly ended that at 5:30.
I think we were all good with that.
Okay.
It wasn't the actual landlords, it was the tenants and then
Yeah.
owners.
And property owners, yep.
All Scott was worried he's gonna get a ticket.
Well, when Kim goes on vacation, we're launching fireworks in his yard. Right, Fritz?
Or actually, the mayor said he's going to come and he's going to put fireworks on my property.
I told him I'd buy them.
Okay, I
You
think we're
really
all.
feel the love here, don't you?
We all agree on the change in the hours for, December 31st, January 1st, from 9 a.m. to 5?
Well, I think we were going to move all those hours back to 5 o'clock, right? That's kind of the
Right.
feeling I got
Yeah,
with the
right,
new
yeah,
one.
that's what we want.
And
So
then
can I ask,
for December 31st, same thing?
so can I ask Roger a question?
No.
Am I
Roger said
permitted to
no.
do that?
Yeah, sure. If it's up, I mean, yeah, you can.
I'm
You're
not
asking
done
me.
with somebody shooting off fireworks on my property. I just want to know what, Roger, what would happen if somebody's shooting off fireworks on Terry's property? I'm not going to put it on me anymore. Terry's property, he's not home. So what would you do as a police?
Well, you're asking
pick
if
on
Terry
Terry
would get a
now.
ticket and he's not home. Is that what your question is?
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, I mean, and that's one of the things that as we draft this ordinance, we'd have to get some advice from the city attorney on that, on how that's going to be handled.
You have to trust your city attorney too, Kim. I have discretion on who to prosecute and who not. And I'm not going to prosecute you if you're out of town and had no idea nobody was on your property.
Okay, that's all I wanted
I'm
to
just not
know
gonna
if
do
that's
it.
the case.
And-
I just want to make sure.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure.
Now, if I have a 17-year-old son, and let's say I'm out of town and he launches a bunch of fireworks on my property,
I'm prosecuting Dave.
I'm probably getting
Yeah,
prosecuted.
exactly.
No, but you get the point. I mean, if
Right.
if it's your kid that's doing it,
Yeah.
or someone who in your family, and I bet the I'm out of town defense probably isn't going to work.
I mean, I'm fine with all this, but I just want to make sure somebody doesn't get fined that isn't really responsible. That's all I'm concerned about.
But you're gonna make your kid pay for it, right?
Yeah, like he's paid for his 3 speeding tickets.
Nice.
They come addressed to David Fierk because I own the car.
And I think a lot of Kim's fears are quelled by the fact of what the police force did this summer. They weren't pulling up to a house not knowing who shot it and handing out tickets. They know the implications of writing a violation and what it proves or what they need to prove, and I think they do a good job with it. I think they'll do a good job with this too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we'll enforce the ordinances you guys pass it, and we will do it, you know, I mean, we want to go out there and make sure that we make the statement that we need to make, but we also have to make sure that we are able to prove it. We don't want to, if we just go out there and randomly do things on our own, we're going to get the bad reputation in court, and I think Mark can verify that. We don't want that, and that's, you know, that's not the type of reputation we want. So when we go out there, we're going to make sure that the case is solid, and we will work with Mark as the ordinance is written, and there's going to be some fine tuning there. I mean, this is going to be new to everything, so I mean, a lot of this you're not going to know until it comes in front of a judge, and the judge makes the decisions on it, so.
Okay. Leave it in.
Okay. Violations, penalties?
Yeah, this kind of the last provision of major change was to make the first offense punishable by a $500, punishable by a $500 fine, not $250. Make it,
Yeah, man.
make it more
What do we charge the people who sell them? Isn't that $500?
Oh,
I know it's a bit off topic, but that's also something that I would like to see in future workshops is
the permit fee?
correct.
Yeah, one of the things and Mark may want to articulate, we are probably going to be back in the spring and dealing with the sale and permitting side of it for a number of reasons. One is there's a federal case that Mark, we were going to talk about how we were going to handle maybe some of the temporary tents in this, but we realize there's some court cases that are probably going to clarify where the law stands on what cities can do or not do. And we're also getting some other indication that we can't have a license. I mean, we can charge an inspection fee and we can do inspections, but we can't license it, is what I'm understanding. Did you want to?
Yeah, briefly, there's a action right now for an injunction. It's filed by one of the fireworks companies against Ankeny, Boone, Johnston, and Pleasant Hill, claiming a number of things. One, whether or not we could limit it to zoning areas. That was determined by the federal court judge that we have a right to limit where you can sell fireworks to specific zoning areas. The others, however, they were granted a temporary injunction. One of them was that we can't, or the cities can't, request or require a permit over and above that requested by the state or required by the state. It's a temporary injunction. The permanent injunction hearing is set in April of next year. So by the time July comes around next year, we'll know where that stands. But the fact that they gave them a temporary injunction, the legal test for that is whether or not they believe that they can succeed at the permanent hearing. So you may very well not be able to require a permit and charge them that fee. We can do an inspection fee and have the right to inspect it.
Is that just in regards to fireworks, or anybody can set up a tent anywhere to sell anything they want?
Fireworks. This is under the Iowa fireworks law because the state requires a permit. And the plaintiffs in that case are claiming that the city is usurping the state law by requiring another permit. So.
Okay.
Would
So
your
then I guess I would
recommendation-
be, go ahead.
Would your recommendation then to be just not to touch anything with permits until they straighten that out?
Right. I mean, ours right now requires the permit, and there's a temporary injunction against those four cities. There's not one against us at this point in time. And I don't know how many will set up for sales around New Year's.
Well, in the wintertime, you can't have what, temporary outdoor sales? So it'll only be, if someone chooses to sell in the wintertime, they'll be doing it from a permanent structure, built their own building.
Okay. So
we can tell them they can only sell it in something that's zone industrial, but we can't charge them. But we may be entering muddy water if we charge them for a fee to set up a temporary tent.
if we require them to get a permit to sell them.
Okay.
That's what the whole thing is, because the state requires them to get a permit. So we can require information for inspection purposes, but we can't charge them a fee just to have a permit to sell them like the state does. And our ordinance does that right now. Now, that was a temporary injunction. That's not the law yet.
Right.
The hearing's not till April.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
Well, here's the simple way to look at it. You may be amending your ordinance again in May of next year, depending on what this court case what the ruling in this court case is involving some of the permit issues.
Interesting.
You know, I'm reflecting back to your question, I think, Councilman Halter, initially about what's our goal, I think you said.
Yeah.
And I guess thinking through that, is there enough deterrent in this language that would scare a person off? That you know, is the penalty for is the fine big enough, or a property owner or a tenant, is that enough of a deterrent? I think that's what I'm looking for, is that there's enough deterrent in this language that would prevent a consumer from doing certain things. And if not, do we have to have more sting in it to deter the type of activity that we want to eliminate? And I tend to think there is. So I'm pretty happy with the language, at least that I sense that's here. I don't know what everybody else's comments are.
I guess my only thoughts are that this language gives the police department, hopefully, a little more teeth, because again, no matter what restrictions we put in place, no matter what we do to this ordinance, the people that are shooting them off at 2, 3 a.m., they don't care what we do at this table. And so we need that enforcement to go after those individuals. And really it's a balancing act between protecting the rights that the state gave to individuals who are responsibly using them versus, again, like you said, that deterrent towards those individuals who were clearly violating this at will this past summer.
I think the $500 is a great deterrent. Most of the people I know, if they get caught with this, they're going to tell everybody they know. It's going to be all over Facebook, and people are going to think twice about breaking the rules, at least the responsible ones. Like Nevin said, the guys that are out there at 2, 3 in the morning, they don't give a rat's behind one way or another what a rule is. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. Those are the guys I hope Roger and his team really get out and hammer the hell out of them with tickets. I would like to bring back for discussion, we never really did get a firm decision on the mines and shells. The last thing we had heard is Mr. Crimmins bringing up the point of how's he going to prosecute and argue what type of firework was being shot off. Again, my thoughts, I've made it abundantly clear. I think they're for sale. We're only doing this for 4 days. Let the people spend their money, have their fun, and be done with it. But I don't think we really had a clear consensus moving forward.
I didn't give my thoughts on that, so if you're taking tallies.
I don't think I took a tally on that.
Oh.
Maybe
Right.
Well, I guess we kind of need to know where the general direction is.
I say ban them.
Terry, what are your thoughts?
Well, again, my concern, if they're legal to sell, then I don't know how we can restrict them. But I don't think the ones we've heard the complaints of are necessarily the ones that are being sold. So I guess at this point, I would say we really shouldn't restrict what's legal to sell.
I don't care for them personally. I know what Andy's saying is true. The ones that are going to use it, they're going to use it anyway. They don't care about what other people think. I would say let's go ahead and try it this time and see what happens. We can always come back to the table again and
I
figure
agree.
something else.
Excuse me, Councilman Olstad. I would think that if we ban them, it might reduce the amount that being shot off. There are going to be those that will shoot them off. I know they're legal to sell, but I say ban them just for the sole purpose of making a statement.
I'm going to say something pretty startling. I'm in agreement with Jeff.
That's twice today. Twice.
I think Jeff makes a really good point. While there are certainly some of these shell devices that are strictly for the exceptionally loud noises, as Andy put it, there's a lot of them that are more of your display type fireworks that give the show. And I think if we're going to get to the point of a restriction of 4 days, let people have fireworks during those 4 days.
I would ask too, that Roger or Lenny, when you guys are doing inspections on these tents, to address the issue that Mr. Minky had brought up, that a lot of these maybe come from Missouri. We've all heard the stories that there were some behind the closed doors dealings of some of these larger fireworks being sold within Fort Dodge. So we might need to just set up a sting operation like we do with the cigarettes and things like that, the alcohol, when we go into convenience stores. We get a 17-year-old kid or even an 18-year-old kid that can buy illegally, but go in and say, hey, I heard you guys got the good stuff. You know, and they get into that back room and bam, they got a ticket.
I hope you're talking about fireworks, Andy.
You take it where you want to, Dean.
If I counted that right, we jumped around that only 3 of you are supporting keeping the ban in on the mine and shell devices, and 4 of you want that out, so we can just remove that. Okay.
I thought it was 5. Keeping the big ones, or the big ones are going to go?
No,
Being the big ones.
the big ones stay in.
I'm tired. My brain hurts.
I think that was 5, wasn't it? Because Terry agreed, I agreed, Andy agreed.
Yeah.
I think you misread Kim.
I misread Kim.
Yeah, it was 5-2.
Okay, my bad. Sorry, Kim.
It's still 1 regardless.
Good point.
Democracy in action.
Okay, we've gone through all the changes, correct?
It was to the fines, whether we wanted to double them or not, I think is where we were last.
Yeah, and the $500.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would open up any comments from the public. State your name and address, Tammy.
We lost 2 of our people who were going to comment.
Tammy Kraus, 2116 4th Avenue North. I agree with the 10 o'clock shutdown fireworks because I work in the mornings and some of my neighbors too at like 3 o'clock in the morning wake me up and it's hard for me to sleep. And I agree with 4 days on the fireworks. And I agree with you, Dave Flattery.
Okay, thank you.
Whoa.
And for like 5 o'clock in the evening until like 10 o'clock. And on the weekends, I let see the fireworks until like 10 o'clock at night, not 12 o'clock, because it's hard for me to sleep, go back to sleep, because I'll be a bear to go to work next morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Before we go any further, I'll limit, I don't know how many more people want to talk, but we'll limit to 3 minutes per citizen. What's that?
Time in your
There's just
Richard.
3.
I don't know. You
Okay.
haven't been good in the name category earlier.
I have 6 minutes. My name is Richard Higgins, 3343 10th Avenue North. I'd like to ask Fritz and Andy, and Jeff, those big bombs that you guys are talking about, is that what you people want, or is that what the city of Fort Dodge wants? Or the complaints that we had, I believe, was for the loud noise, those big bombs, or whatever you want to call them. Now, is this just what you 2 guys want, or have you talked to the citizens? Because you represent everybody in Fort Dodge. Is this what they want, or is this just what you guys want?
You want my personal opinion? Yes. Fireworks are stupid.
Yes,
They're a
they
waste
are.
of time and money and effort.
Yes.
That's my personal opinion. I don't come up here to represent my personal opinion. I come up here to represent what I believe is the opinion of my constituents.
How many people have you?
And I would say that I have probably had, I don't know, 40 people. Let's just throw a number out there. You know, Divine's not here to quote me on it. But I would say I've probably heard from 40 people. I would say that maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 of those have been, don't take my fireworks away. And the others have been, hey, this is getting out of hand. This is ridiculous. It goes on all hours of the night. The season is way too long. It's too many days. They don't need to do it for a month. So I kind of just took everything, and what I heard was, okay, let's really reduce that down to maybe a week. And let's try to find a way that we can actually catch these people and enforce it so that it can get under control. My personal opinion is, I think they're stupid.
I agree with you. That's very true. But what
I won't ever buy any, nor will I ever discharge any.
But Roger, how many complaints did we have? 400
Yeah, I don't have the exact number, it was a little over 400.
A little over 400. And a lot of them was for that big noise bomb, wasn't it? Basically, of the loud noises, especially 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, we got to think.
Well, noise is one thing. Outside of the time limits is another thing. When we're getting complaints at 2, 3 in the morning, it doesn't matter if it's a little tiny firecracker or if it's one of those big ones like the shells. The fact of the matter is that person is still not within the boundary of the law. That's where those complaints come in. Noise, it's one or the other. You know, it's loud, it's not loud. I get that. Personally, I love the big ones. Most of the people that I know, friends, family, they like the big ones. Rather than spending $100 on bottle rockets, which I can probably get a few $1,000s worth of bottle rockets, I can go out for $100 and get a 10-minute show for my family. It's done. It's over with. Whereas bottle rockets, those are the guys that you hear out there lighting one at a time when it's 12 o'clock. You hear one go off. 12:01, another little one goes off. Just the little annoying ones like the mosquitoes and the gnats. Those are what those fireworks are. Those are the mosquitoes and gnats of fireworks. The big ones done within the boundary of the law, we're asking the citizens of Fort Dodge to put up with 4 days of legal use of fireworks. We're not up here to legislate against stupidity. We're up here to try to find a compromise for the rights of the people that light fireworks off legally within the bounds versus those idiots that are out there going against what the law is and making everybody else look bad. No different than drunk driving. You can't legislate drunk driving. People do it. Only way you're going to get rid of it, hey, we're a dry city, dry county. We're getting rid of alcohol in the community. That didn't work out in prohibition. So let the responsible people have their fun. Let them have their time, and let's deal with it for a short amount of time. And the rest of the year, you guys can have peace and quiet at night, but give them 4 days.
But what about the people that don't want those big bombs or rockets, whatever you're talking about? You're talking about maybe 100, 200 people.
Why are their rights more important than the rest of the city?
What about the people that, the veterans, that when those things go off, they're on the ground, they're, you know, have you ever been in a war?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you don't know what it's like to have a bomb go right in front of you. Sure, those people they hit the deck or whatever you want to call it, and the older people are senior citizens, the people with animals.
I've
You know,
got
I can
animals that hate
understand. I
'em.
can understand the fireworks, but not these big bombs that we have. So I'd like to see you guys, you know, restrict that or eliminate that particular one, like you had up there on the screen. That's my opinion on. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Anybody else?
I think just as a quick, go ahead, sorry.
Come on up.
Laura Eastwood, 1415 North 28th Street. I'm going to say I appreciate you all thinking about this and really thinking about everybody, not just certain people. Granted, fireworks drive me crazy, but that's okay, but it's a fun time. I give it to you if you get it shorter. A month is way too long. New Year's Eve, I don't want to hear it for a week, but okay. But I thank you for taking into consideration everybody's thoughts. I understand that there's veterans, there's dogs, there's older people, but we have to be, you're hired to do a job for everybody, not just certain people, and I thank you.
Now, my comment actually is going to piggyback. I would love to see a number, and I don't think we'll ever get one, of just how much money was spent on fireworks in Fort Dodge. And yeah, I might have gotten a handful of complaints every night from people who have one go off by their home, but in this case, it's very clear that there is a truly silent, I would say, I don't know if majority or minority, but they spent massive amounts of money on fireworks in Fort Dodge. And if you're buying fireworks, you're supporting fireworks. So again, I mentioned a balancing act earlier. Again, this is another instance where we balance one individual's rights versus another individual's rights. And while I would like to see the time frame just a little bit longer, I think we've done a good job at balancing those rights with what we have in front of us.
Okay.
There is one question that, is everybody okay with the 11 p.m. extension on the weekends? Because I'd like to see that at 10 o'clock.
I guess my opinion is it even hardly dark at 10 o'clock in July? Like, barely. So that would be my thing, is if I'm going to go out, and I'm not, but if I were to go out and spend $100 for my 10-minute show for my kids and family, I certainly want to do it at a time that is going to provide the best show. And my fear would be that at 9:45, to make sure I'm done by 10, it may not be dark enough to be able to get that. So I think 10 o'clock is kind of early, just because I don't think it's dark enough.
The other comment I would make to that, Jeff, for folks that go to Otho, Gowrie, Humboldt, whatever, their shows usually aren't over until after 10, and then a lot of people will go home, and that's when they light theirs off. So with that 11 o'clock time limit, that allows people to get home from the big display celebrations, do their own, and then call it a night.
Yeah, I don't even know when those things get over, because I don't even go to those.
I don't have a problem on the 4th of July going to 11 o'clock. I don't have a problem with that at all.
I don't have an issue with the whole 4 days going to 11 o'clock. I think if we're talking removing 30-plus days of a right to use, an extra 4 hours total is reasonable. Another question, not to jump in front of everybody, is at what point do we end it on New Year's Eve? Are we going to go to 10, 11? Are we going to hit midnight?
12:30.
Wasn't it 12:30?
It says
I think so.
says-
I just didn't know if anybody had different ideas on that.
Yeah, if you're going to light them off, you're going to do it right at midnight, I'm sure, so.
Yep.
Everybody okay with 11 o'clock, Dean? You're probably not?
Well, I'd like to see it shorter, but I'm willing to compromise.
On the 4th or the week? I think you said weekends,
It's
wasn't it?
only on the weekends.
Well, we've only got 4 days.
I believe that the majority of the council felt that 4 days was ample and sufficient time.
To go to 11? Yes.
So I believe that we're only discussing, at this point, based on that, we're only discussing the time limit of those 4 days that we're going to allow it, which is July 1st to July 4th. So I would say even more so, because it's only going to be 4 days, that it should be allowed till 11 on all 4 days.
I could live with that.
I could live with just the weekends for 11, but through the week, if it's through the week, then I still think 10 o'clock is late enough.
Devin, are you at 11 o'clock?
Everybody,
Clear as mud.
Yeah, I was 11 o'clock for all 4
it appears
days.
at 11 o'clock for the whole 4 days.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Hey, if you guys don't mind, let's quickly run through. There's not a whole lot of sections here this is the current ordinance with strike through and underline. And again, I won't hit on each. These that are saying this is just some grammatical stuff here. Then we get down into this permit revocation. I would advise that we don't do this now, because we're going to have to do something with that permit language next spring anyways. So there's no real point, I think, in amending this at this point.
So we don't have to require them to have a permit to sell them, because they get that from the state.
Yeah.
But can't we ask for them to have a permit to set up a temporary tent?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to have a permit for a temporary tent, but we required a permit for everybody.
For everybody to sell.
Yeah.
That's what our ordinance requires.
So we're going to have.
You go get a permit from the state, then you gotta come to the city, and you come to Fort Dodge and get one. That's what that,
Get a permit to set up your temporary tent.
that's what that lawsuit's about.
Okay.
Okay, so in this 924050, this paragraph 2 is coming out, this paragraph 3 is coming out, these won't be in the next draft. And then for this paragraph, which is 8, which will go back to number 6, this 9 a.m. will now say 5 p.m., and this will now say 11 p.m. This language isn't going to be needed anymore if it's 11 p.m. And then in this subsection B, this 9 a.m. is going to say 5 p.m., and then everything else is the same. This language all stays the same. This is a legal tenant language we talked about. And then the other thing is just the violations and penalties, whereas now it says 500 instead of 250. So I just want to quickly run, do I got it all correct? I understand that Dean is not happy with those 11 p.m.s, and I guess,
I can compromise.
You'll
It's
have
better
to-
than what we had.
yeah.
So we are going to essentially double the violations.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm clear with what I'm writing or not I guess I should say Ryan or Mark are writing for the next city council meeting, which we will have this then on the agenda for first reading. At some point, whether it's the first reading or second reading, I am going to ask for the waiver of the third reading, because the third reading would actually be after the date of which fireworks would be allowed to be used, and in December, and we're changing that to we're changing that to just the 31st. So we really ought to, if we're all comfortable.
Or we
ought
just schedule a special meeting.
Oh, that's right. We may have. I take that back. Let me check it out. I think we may be having
Worked
a
in
special.
the past.
Why would we do that?
It's worked in the past.
At 4:30, we'll do a special meeting for. No, I think actually there is a planned special.
4:30, that was funny.
Yeah.
6 o'clock special meetings, please.
Yeah, I know. I think there is a planned one because we need to have, I think, setting a hearing or having a hearing on the CSMID. Based on
Okay.
that schedule, I think we're having a special meeting in November. I'll double check on it before we get the reading started on that.
I can't remember. Do we have it in there? And I can't remember. I read the whole thing, but I can't remember it right now. Do we have in there that we will hand out the rules and regulations on how and when they can shoot fireworks off? To people
I
who
think
sell the
that's-
fireworks.
Yeah, I think that's somewhere in the,
I don't remember. Maybe it was.
I'd have to go.
Got a comment, Lenny?
Yeah, I hate to be the guy that throws a monkey wrench in when everybody's agreeing, but I believe if we check, I'm working from memory here, but I believe the only time state law allows it to go past 10 p.m. is on the 4th of July, the weekends before and after, and New Year's Eve.
So you're saying we're extending beyond state law?
Yeah, if we go beyond 10 o'clock on a date that's not July 4th, the Saturday and Sunday before, the Saturday and Sunday after, or New Year's Eve, I think that's outside of state law.
That's a good point. I don't know
Thank
for
you,
sure,
Lenny.
but here's the thing. If we have, we will amend our ordinance to be in compliance with the state law.
Okay.
All right. Anything,
Still want to see stuff about permits.
any other comments, questions? If not, we'll conclude this workshop. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you on a couple weeks.
Are you gonna send an email to Ryan or want me to give him the scoop?
Whatever you like. Is he just?
He's